Acoustics in the US. And today I'm interviewing Mr. Richard Lenz, which works at Real Acoustics. So hello, Mr. Lenz.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. So, like every time, the interview will be divided into 4 parts. The first part with a general presentation of your company, then a second part more about you, then a third part about a special project, and the last part about the perspective, your future, etc. So let's just start with the first one, which is the general presentation. So can you just introduce your company to those who don't know it, please?
Sure. Real Acoustics was formed 6 years ago. I'm the president of the company, and formed it. We're an architectural acoustics company. We started in the recording studio industry. That's what we're best known for, doing diffusers and absorption products, a lot of wood-based products with good architectural features that you'll see if you're familiar with recording studios. And from there, it's branched out into doing concert halls, and we do a lot of schools, and now into commercial applications. We're starting to see a lot more acoustics being applied into commercial applications, especially with all the new green technologies coming in, which have made rooms, buildings sound bad. So acoustics is now starting to become more of an issue in there, and it's so that's the general overview of what Real Acoustics does.
Okay, thank you very much. And so in this company, you said that you founded the company, if I heard right. So can you just describe your role within the company more precisely, please?
Well, I'm the president of the company, but I'm also the chief designer of our product line. So we currently have about close to 50 different products that we offer. A lot again in the diffuser line. We have the largest line of diffusers in the world, and it's been kind of an interesting journey over the last 6 years, because a lot of people really didn't think there was much of a market for diffusion, but we'll probably sell over 1,000 diffusers this year. So we've definitely kind of added to that market, and it's there have been predecessors to us that were doing some work, but we've done some interesting work on the acoustics side. I'm a member of the American Society, Acoustical Society of America, and do a lot of papers on testing and things like that. And so we're very very adamant and very interested in the actual physics side of the equation, and what these devices do, and how better to represent them in the marketplace as well as in the acoustics field, because we found that there have been a lot of misunderstandings over the years as far as what different devices do. So hence the name Real Acoustics. We're trying to add a lot of reality to what to expect from acoustic treatments as you apply them.
Okay. And so that's very interesting, because so you're saying that you're the president and also the chief of design, if I heard right. I'm not sure. Yes, that's it.
That is correct.
Okay. So like a double role within the company. I'm sure that these two roles are very different, I suppose.
Well, they are. I mean, we out of necessity, when we started, we were a very small company, and we're growing pretty rapidly now. But it's and at some point that I will probably wear more of an administrative hat than that. But I still wear 2 hats in the company and still do that. And it happens to be what I like to do as well. I love designing acoustics, and I love creating things that do different things, and acoustic devices that actually are tailored to specific needs. And that's pretty well one of the things we're known for, is we do a lot of customized work, where if somebody needs a certain absorption curve in a device, we can design that, and if somebody wants a certain amount of diffusivity in a device, or wants it to do something, and we have patents and various other things on certain devices that we've designed that are quite unique, and so I enjoy that aspect of it. So I don't know that I'll give it up anytime soon, just to be an administrator.
Okay, yes. Okay, my third question is about why did you choose acoustics? Because uh, every time I try to talk to people in general in the normal life, I would say they don't know what is acoustics and they don't know why do I want to study and to work in this field. So I just want to ask you the same question. Why do you want? Because why did you want to work in this field? And yes, just
You know,
what did you want?
I came at acoustics a little bit different than a lot of people. I started off my career. I was actually a music education major in college. So, but I studied acoustics, kind of because I was interested in it. I also studied acoustics in college, but it wasn't my major. It wasn't, something that I was intending to do. And in fact, I over the years, I started my career after college. I started my career as a sound engineer. So I was a sound engineer traveling all over the world with, big artists and doing that. And, that was the schooling for me for sound. And at the end of the day, it's, I'm very grateful for that, 10 plus years of my career because it really taught me, the differences in rooms and the both the adequacies and the inadequacies of various rooms around the world, and what in doing all different kinds of music, everything from classical to to hard rock, you start to learn that what things do and how certain rooms work, where the idiosyncrasies in rooms are, and so later in my career, I started designing recording studios about 25 years ago, and I was doing both the electronics side as well as the acoustic side. And acoustics was kind of the, oh yeah, we can do this as well, in terms of how that started. And it was interesting because the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed doing the acoustic side and really started to kind of get away from the electronic side. And so 6 years ago, I decided to just do it full time and start a manufacturing firm because one of the things that I always noticed is there were some real I guess shortcomings in some of the products that were out there, and I wasn't real happy. I ended up making a lot of diffusers and various other products over the years by hand, one-offs, and learned a lot about the design and that type of thing during that period. And so I decided to apply those technologies to an actual manufacturing firm, and it's worked out well.
Okay, okay, very good. Very interesting. Okay, so basically you just started as you said music education, so you were like a music teacher, then you moved on to a sound engineer, and now you moved on to acoustics.
Well, I was going to be a music teacher, but I never actually was. I decided by the time I graduated, I decided I probably didn't have the temperament to deal with a bunch of little kids all the time. So it was, as saving the kids a lot of grief, I decided not to be a music teacher. So I went into doing sound as a career. I had been a musician as well, so I knew that end of it quite well, and it was so it worked out. It worked out well that I didn't become a music teacher.
Okay, okay, thank you. And my next question is about your company now is 6 years old. You said it earlier, and with all your past experiences in this company, maybe do you have like a project that you're the most proud of? What's the project that you're most proud of so far, basically?
Um, Boy, that's a tough question. We've worked on a lot of projects over the last few years, and probably, I mean, it's kind of a mixed question because we have recording studios. Probably if I was to segment it out, and I don't mean to kind of deflect the question too much, but we just got through this last 2 years doing 2 new rooms in Electric Lady Studios, which is Electric Lady was Jimi Hendrix's studio. It was built in 1970, And it had 2 rooms that existed there for basically 40 years, and then 2 years ago they wanted to add 2 new rooms, and we got to do the 2 new rooms, and it worked out wonderfully. It's a project I'm very proud of, and one, because I was a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, so it was kind of a kind of a personal thing for me from that standpoint, and it's and it turned out wonderfully, and people love the rooms, and so we're very proud of that fact, and that's probably and it was also an interesting project from the standpoint of we got to design some very unique products, some mixed diffusion type products, and some absorption products. So it was fun.
Okay, yes. I understand the idea of being fan of Jimi Hendrix and then taking part into building a new part of the studio. Personally, I listen to a lot of rap music, and I think if a new rapper would come to me and say, "Hey, I need someone to help me with my recording studio," I would just say yes without thinking about it.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same type of feeling, and it's and we've done quite a bit for we've done probably 7 or 8 major studios in New York City. Just got through doing a project in Quad Studios, who deals with a lot of rappers, Neo and a bunch of other guys, DMZ and people like that. So I'm familiar with that end of things as well. So.
Okay, okay, very interesting. Okay. And so now we move on to the second part, which is more about you precisely. So you said you founded the company, you have an administrative side and as well as a design side in the company. So based on your experience, can you describe just the qualities people need to have to do your job? According to you, what would they be?
Well, it's interesting. I think first of all, you have to have a love for what you're doing. No matter what you're doing in your life, you have to really like it and love the aspects of what you're doing. It's because it's going to be hard work, no matter what you do. But if you like it, it's not nearly as hard as it would be otherwise. So, but you really have to have a set of ears, and that's one of the things that I would always encourage students to do, is to develop their ears. Develop the pattern of being able to listen to what they're doing and to what Acoustics is doing. Because at the end of the day, from our side, dealing with music facilities and things like that, you have to be able to understand through your ears what exactly happened when you applied certain devices. Really have to have a knowledge of and a sound of sound, and it's helpful to have a knowledge of instruments and that type of thing. And it's probably been one of the main helps that I've had, is that because I have a musical background in a lot of different fields of music, it's been very helpful to be able to go in and help design various facilities and products and treatments for the specific requirements of that studio and or live hall or whatever it might be. And again, this is one of the things that as we start to get further into the definition of acoustics, and it's not just the architectural side. I mean, the architectural side is we make things for buildings that look pretty, but they have to serve a function as well, and and function for me always comes first, and that's it's one of the things that it's difficult, when a student comes out of college, for instance, to have they may have an understanding of acoustics, but they may not have an understanding of architecture and of the things that are required from our side of the industry to keep architects happy, to keep interior designers happy, and so there, it really becomes an art in both sides, trying to complement each other and make sure that we build things that not only make the environment sound better, but also make it look better. And that's one of the things, where fortunately I have a background in both sides, and I've been dealing with architects for 30 years, so I have a pretty good understanding of what they want and how to achieve what they want.
Okay. Just to be curious, you said you have a background in music, so you're a musician. Which instrument do you play? I mean, I personally I play drums, and so what do you
I
play?
was uh, I was originally a bass player. When I started as an electric, well, I started as a guitar player years and years ago, but when I was a kid, and then switched over to bass in college, and I played both upright bass and electric bass. So and played in a number of bands and things like that, and but yeah, decided that that wasn't exactly a great career move either. So at the time, so. Uh, and there were a lot of musicians who were better than I was, and frankly, that's the way I felt. And so I chose to kind of be on the other side of the table with regards to music, and it's worked out very well for me.
Okay, yes, I understand what you're saying because it's almost the same in my engineering school. Every September, our headmaster does like a great conference, and he always asks to the audience who plays music here, and all the students are raising their hands. So it's very, I think it's the bottom line in acoustics. Almost everybody that works in acoustics is or has been a musician previously. So I think it
And it
helps
makes
to.
sense. Right. It makes perfect sense that that they are, and it's extremely helpful. I can be no matter what discipline of acoustics you get into, having a musical background, being able to hear tones and understand frequencies and all of that, that it all equates back to a musical background, and it's very helpful, I think, to have that. And certainly, I find that all the time. I run into acousticians and engineers who all seem to play instruments of some sort or another. So it's a good thing.
Okay, yes. Okay, so then the next question, sorry, it's more about what is your typical day? What do you do in the morning when you arrive in your company, or maybe you work at home? I don't know. What do you do? Because you said you have like multiple roles in your company. So how does it work? Do you have maybe a typical pattern?
Yeah, my typical day starts probably at 5:30 in the morning. I will get up. I do most of my design work early in the morning, so I do that at home. And so I'll design for 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll go into the office. And from that point, I'm dealing with a typical day. I'm dealing with clients who are calling with various needs and wants, and discussing projects and trying to make sure that everything gets built to their specifications and the way they want it. I'm in the factory quite a bit, not as much as I used to be. It's I'll go out in the factory and make sure the production is going the way it's supposed to be going, and but we have guys that handle all that, and so I'm generally dealing with clients more than anything else, and I manage to do some of the marketing side as well. It's we do a lot of things with regards to mailers and things like that directly to our to the acousticians. We have about probably 800 acousticians in the United States that we
Yeah.
have on a regular mailing list, um, and again, they're in all different kinds of disciplines. It's not all just architectural acoustics, but we find that keeping in touch with them is very important so that they always know what we're doing. And we try to advertise the projects we've been working on. And we have a series of postcards. For instance, we send out usually about a half a dozen postcards a year of various new projects that we've done. And people like to see that kind of stuff, and it's helpful for them to see the type of work that we're doing. And it's been very beneficial with regards to getting more work coming our way.
Okay, yes, I understand. In the previous interview I did with Mr. Ayton, he told me that he created like a giant database of maybe 2,000, sorry, email addresses, and every month he emailed them with new trends and what did he do in his company. So it's like you with your postcard,
Right.
like. Keeping people informed of what you do. I think it's very important to do this.
It is, and it's I've kind of eschewed the email campaigns mostly because you always get some people that don't want to be bothered with emails. So hence why we did the snail mail routine. It's actually, like I said, there are a lot of people that get bothered by getting an email blast, for instance, of advertising. So we've just chosen, and it works fine. Tavius does that, and it works very well for him. And I don't find it intrusive at all. I enjoy reading it, but it's some people I know, even when we've done it on a couple of occasions, and people say, "Oh, don't do that. Don't send it to us." So so we're kind of about the email blast.
Okay. And I don't know if you can really answer to my next question because it's more about like every project in particular, because I don't know if you still conduct project while designing new products or doing administrative stuff, but maybe can you just tell us a little about how is conducted the project in general in your company? How does it work from the beginning to the end, and who works, who does what?
I think well, it depends on the project. Sometimes certain projects, I mean, if they're using standard products that we make, and like I said, we have probably 50 different products that are standard in our line, but we're particularly well known for our customization. So if a product is customized, it needs something particular, it's always going to pass by my desk, and it's going to be one of those things where I have to take a look at it and determine how best we can accomplish this for the client, whether it's a modification of an existing product or creating something that will suffice for their needs. For instance, we did a project at the Berklee School of Music in Boston, which I was just there last week and took some pictures of, and the project, the material requested didn't really exist. It was a modification of what we call our DSA panel, which is it's a wood absorber. It's a slatted wood absorber, and but John Storick, who designed it with Walter Storick Group, wanted it to address particular frequency range. So I modified the product to address that frequency range, and when I say designing a product, it's basically most of the things that we do are cut on computer nested machines, CNC machines, and so it requires not just designing it, but also engineering it so that it can be cut on the machine. And it's far more accurate to have the machines do the work than trying to do these things by hand and all that. So it can be pretty intense. And once it leaves my desk and becomes a product per se, then it's going to go into the factory and goes to our shop manager, who basically takes care of all of the engineering and making sure the machines are set up right and doing all that. And then we check on finishes, because we do a lot of different types of finishes for people, and my guys will handle all of that from that point forward. And it's depending on the size of the project, and that's just one type. That's more of a one-on-one type of situation. We have other ones where there'll be huge projects that can extend for 2 or 3 years at times, and be that long in the planning. We just got one, excuse me, for a project we're doing in Canada that the plan set alone was 350 pages. And it's a 5-year project, and will go in stages over that period of time. There'll be a lot of customization in the products and some standard products. So it takes different routes depending on exactly what is required. But and at some point we'll be adding another engineering person in there, because I can't. We're getting to the point where I can't deal with all of it. It's too much to do on the administrative side and everything else. But yeah, that's not a bad problem to have, actually. So I'm not complaining.
Okay. Okay, so now we're moving on to the third part. It's almost half of the interview. We talked a lot about some projects in the beginning of the interview. Now you told us about how do you conduct them in general. So, but just can you just like pick up a real project that you conducted, or maybe that your company conducted in general, and tell us about maybe the initial mission you were given. I mean, the instructions the client gave you. Then maybe I'm sure you faced some challenges, and then what
Yeah,
were the final results actually?
yeah, there's a lot of interesting, projects to discuss. I mean, Electric Lady would be a good example. We were contacted um, by the guys at Electric Lady and said, we have these two new rooms. We want to do them. We want to, or it's actually one room at a time, but we have this room that we want to do, and it's they had a particular engineer who's worked with a lot of famous artists who wanted to house himself out of Electric Lady, and he had some specific requirements for the room that he wanted to do, and so as we discussed it, and we discussed what for instance, with the quadratic residue diffusers that we make, this room was deep enough that we could use the biggest model that we make, which is what's called a Real Quad 250, Real Quad Studio 250, and because he had enough depth to handle in the room to handle the lower frequency range, we put in what is a relatively deep diffuser. It's a 12-inch deep diffuser in there, and we worked with them, both aesthetically and figuring out what they wanted with regards to woods and things like that, and also acoustically to make sure that the room had a good balance. We used a fair amount of our fast panels, which is it stands for frequency absorbing specified tuning. It's a panel with a series of perforations in it that have a specific tuning to primarily absorb midband. And a lot of the problems we find in studios, and in this particular environment was one of them, that you'll find that there are too much absorption. We see that a lot of designers do that, whether accidentally or not really gauging. You'll find a situation where there's too much absorption in a room, and it tends to affect the high frequency performance. And then in studio applications, what ends up happening is that it doesn't translate well to the real world. And that's in a control room. That's one thing you always want to make sure is that the mixes translate. Once an engineer, what an engineer hears in his environment is what the customer is going to hear when they buy the CD. So we worked with them really closely to determine, what was going to work best in that environment, and ultimately it turned out great. They were very excited about it when it was done, and it looks great, and they love the sound of it. So, all well.
Okay, very good. Congratulations for this. So, and just when did you conducted this project?
The first room we actually did about 2.5 years ago, and then the second room we did last year. So it's about 1.5 years ago. So we did both rooms within a year of each other.
Okay, so that's very interesting. You almost rebuilt everything, I assume, in the studio.
Yeah. It was the interesting part about it is these rooms were not originally studios. They were the upstairs room. One was originally Jimi Hendrix's bedroom, and the other one was and the other one was a storage room, a very large storage room. And so they thought it was pretty much wasted space at that point. We knew Jimmy wasn't going to come back and sleep in it, so we decided that the best thing to do was utilize those rooms for these engineers, and like I said, it's worked out very well.
Okay, it's very interesting that you turned the Jimi Hendrix bedroom into a beautiful studio.
He would have loved it. I honestly think he would have loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, and now we move on to the fourth part of the interview, almost the end. I always ask this to the speakers because I want to know what do they want to do, what is their future, and my first question would be, what are your short-term projects? I mean, currently, what's on your desk? What will you do in the next weeks or next month, maybe?
Well, currently we're working on a big studio project in New York City for Warner Music. It's nice to see actually big studios are starting to come back and people are starting to make bigger studios again. There was a time period of about 10 years where we just weren't seeing a lot of, we were actually seeing more studios close than open. But we're starting now to see a lot more studios open up and music record companies putting money into making their studios solid again. So, we're this is a big 3-floor project in Manhattan that's we've got just a ton of products in it, and it's so that's kind of on our plate right now, and we're in the midst of getting all this done and for them, and of course timelines are always shorter than you want, and but we'll get it done. It's that's a good project, and then like I said, we've got a couple projects in Canada that are we're working on, and so it's our plate is very full right now. We'll be busy. Well, we haven't not been busy for the last 2.5 years. It's I can't see the the future entirely, but it just keeps looking better all the time.
Okay, cool. Congratulations for this. And my next question, which is the logical next question, after your short-term projects, what are your long-term projects? I mean, maybe in the next 10 years, how do you imagine your life? Will you still be in the same company or doing something different? Maybe back to the music teaching or something else?
No, I don't imagine I'll ever be teaching music. My temperament still isn't all that great for kids, so it's. But as far as since I own the company, it's the future of it. I mean, I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere. I suspect that with regards to what my future plans are, is creating more interesting acoustics. That's kind of one of the things I love doing, and one of the reasons I like this is it's always challenging and it's always keeping me occupied mentally and physically with regards to coming up with new ways to create better better acoustics in rooms. There's a lot of work to be done on the architectural side. Right now, like I said, we're kind of at a precipice where we see architects finally being interested in acoustics, because with the advent of green technologies, there's been so much push in the last 10 years, especially for architects to use more light, natural light, and all of these things in buildings. Unfortunately, what happens when you do that, which means you're using more windows and then creating more open space, is you also create a more acoustically decadent environment, for lack of a better word. The environment is not very conducive to good sound. So now we're finally seeing architects paying attention and saying, okay, we need to solve these problems before we finish up this building, or in the design phase. And so it's exciting to see that, and we're in the process of developing new products for the commercial side of the industry that nice looking absorption products, not just fabric covered panels on a wall, but something, some products that are just absolutely stunning with regards to their architectural features. And that's kind of an exciting new avenue that we're taking, and in the long term, that's probably going to be a big part of the next 10 years is addressing all of these new needs in the commercial industry.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Every time I interview someone that deals with acoustics, the speaker keeps saying that he wants to stay in the company because every project is different and every project is new. There are new challenges. So I think I understand your point of view.
Right, and it's and that's you keep it interesting for yourself. That's the great part. And again, being the owner of the company, I kind of control that. It's so I can control what I'm interested in and what I'm interested in doing, and it's a little selfish, but that's okay. My company, I'm allowed to be. So so it's fun. Like I said, it's been 6 years, and it seems like it's been 2. So it's I imagine it's going to continue on that way for many years, and someday I'll retire, but it won't be anytime soon.
Okay, so I wish you all the best for your company.
Well, thank you.
Okay, and my last question, which is not really a question, but what would you say regarding to your experience? What you do in what you've done in acoustics and etc. for the past 10 years or more? What tips would you give to students like me that wants to go into acoustics, to work here, and for students especially like me that wants to work in acoustics but abroad? Maybe there are some differences. In the previous interview, we talked about differences between Europe and the United States about acoustics. So, what, for example, if you had like 3 tips to share with students like me?
I think the biggest thing, and it's kind of tough because we're kind of locked into our own little world here, and I'm familiar with what's going on out there, obviously, and I know what's happening with regards to the acoustics world. There's a lot of new things. I think the biggest thing a student can bring is not only the knowledge of acoustics and how to do it, but make sure that you understand that your mind is open to new things. A lot of times, and without any, I don't want to get on educators' backside or anything, but always keep your mind open to the fact that what you may believe is true may not always be true, and that's kind of a tough comment to make. But we've in the last last 3 years, we've actually disproven a lot of theory that we thought existed, and that was set in stone. And it's typical of physics. Every time somebody comes up with a new equation, you go back and you start realizing that there may be a problem here. And it's one of those things where you have to understand that it's the equations are worth what they're worth. But at the end of the day, empirical evidence, whether it's testing or whether it's what you hear, those kinds of things, are far more important than the equation. And it's what the end result is that matters, and it's what can you do to make sure that you solve the problems in an environment. It's great that you can graduate at the top of your class and be a great acoustician, but what are you going to do with it? What value do you add to your future employer? If all you're doing is going out there and testing rooms and using ISO or ASTM standards to do that, that's great, awesome. But on the other hand, if you really have a desire to gain experience and to grow in the industry, you better learn how to create, and that's the most important thing. You have to learn to keep your mind open and understand that there are a lot of different things going on in the world, and both from a physics standpoint and from other standpoints as well.
Okay, very interesting answer, because it reminds me of my previous interview, because the speaker was talking about thinking outside of the box and not always thinking like everybody does. So yeah,
right.
It's a very interesting point. Okay, so I'm done for the main questions. I don't know if you want to add something regarding your company, your job, or acoustics in general. It's your time if you want to promote something.
That's all right. No, I think it was a great interview. I appreciate it. I think I've said about everything I need to say, and I hope it was helpful to you.
Okay, yes, it was a lot, yes. With every interview, I learn new things, so it's very important for me.
Great.
So, yes, did you want to add something now?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, okay, sorry. So, thank you very much once again. And for those who are watching this video right now, you can just click on the link in the description to see the full article I will write about this video, the pictures I will add, and etc. And I hope to find you in the next interview. And yes, that's it. See you soon. Goodbye,
Thanks.
Mr. Richard Lenz, and thank you very much for your time.
Take care.
Goodbye.